Ah, shit. Amen. Welcome back. Hi, Ice. How's it going? How you liking gay men? Hello, hello. I see something. Okay. Up. Yeah. Amen. What was I doing? We're reading books. Again. I have to check things though. What you doing? How you doing? What, where, when, why? Ah, shit. Oh god. Yeah, that's the sound of the book. Book ASMR. We'll do a page flipping. Isn't that delightful? Isn't that just great, fantastic? I have tea, I have a book, I have some water. Oh. How does it look so far though? My internet's being really slow right now. Yeah, stream announcements. Cool. Cool. It's funny, because ever since I started reading books and that makes me stream more, I've lost followers, which I get it, but it's not my fault. I literally can't. It's funny. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Can't even, like, see shit. Oh, there we go. My internet's just that bad. You can see in my example of trying to show you shit. That's how bad it is, also. Does this show up for anybody? I have to know. I have to know. Hey, make sure you check out my store and shit. Anyways, as we get back to books in a second. Okay. Well, yeah, no, this is just like a welcome, and if you have a a drink, a nice hot tea. Go get it and drink it and yeah. Let's hope that I'm not super tired. Oh yeah. Let's see what I remember from last time. Fucking. Let's see. There was like a 5-page fucking dissertation about echoes. They built a shelf. They knocked something off of the shelf, but like it hit the wall so it didn't fall off. And then later that night, it didn't hit the wall and it fell off and the wife screamed. And that's where the echo thing came into. And now we're here. Page 60. Yeah. Hell yeah. I just took a drink. I'll drink some more though. How's it going, man? I read books now. We're doing, as my little dude is holding the House of Leaves, I'm also holding the House of Leaves. And remember, House is in blue. Hey, look, it's Raven. We will take a cat break, maybe about an hour. Gotta head out, but you saw the stream. Well, you can also listen to this in headphones. Where are you heading out to, man? There we go. I'm just gonna start reading while you type that out. You have no idea? Oh? Just out. Understandable. Your phone is off. Yeah, that's true. Hi, Raven. So we're finally at the 5.5-minute hallway. The 5.5-minute hallway in the Novitzin record differs slightly from the bootleg copy which appeared in 1990. For one thing, in addition to the continuous circumambulating shot, a wider selection of shots has been made to cover the sequence much more thorough and fluid. Enjoy the read, I'll come back. Yay! I don't know how long I'll be going, probably like an hour or two. Raven just hopped up on the desk. Get down, Raven. Would read. Yeah. For another, the hallway is shrunk. This was impossible to see in the VHS copy because there was no point of comparison. Now, however, it is clear that the hallway, which was well over 60 feet deep when the children entered, it is now a little less than 10 feet. Raven! Context also significantly alters the 5.5-minute hallway. A greater sense of the Novitzins and their friends. Get out from behind there, Raven. Nope. Get off. Get off the table. Come on. Come on. There we go. And their friends and how they all interact with the house, Houses in Blue, adds the greatest amount of depth to this quietly evolving enigma. Their personalities almost crowd that place, and suddenly too, as an abrupt jump cut re-delivers Tom from Massachusetts and Billy Reston from Charlottesville, the UVA professor once again wheeling around the periphery of the angle, unable to take his eyes off the strange dark corridor. Unlike the Twilight Zone, however, or some other like cousin where understandings come neat and fast, i.e., this is clearly a door to another dimension, or this is a passage to another world with directions. The hallway offers no answers, so the monolith in 2001 seems the most appropriate cinematic analog. Jesus fuck, what's wrong with me today? incontrovertibly there, but virtually invalid to interpretation. Similarly, the hallway also remains meaningless, though it is most assuredly not without effect. As Novitzin threatens to re-enter it for closer inspection, Karen reiterates her previous plea, an injunction for a sharp and abrupt rise in pitch. The ensuing tension is more than temporary. Novitzin has always been an adventurer, willing to risk his personal safety in the name of achievement. Karen, on the other hand, remains the standard bearer of responsibility and is categorically against risks, especially those which might endanger her family or her happiness. Tom also shies away from danger, preferring to turn over a problem to someone else, ideally a police officer, fireman, or any other state official. Without sound or movement, but by presence alone, the hallway creates a serious rift in the Novitzin household. Bazine Naduk. Whoa, what the hell? What happened to the fire? Bazine Nauduk suggests that the hallway exudes a conflict-creating force. It's those oily walls radiating badness which maneuver Karen and Will into that nonsensical fight. Nauduk's argument reveals a rather tedious mind. She feels a need to invent some non-existent dark force, account for all ill will, instead of recognizing the dangerous influence the unknown naturally has on everyone. A couple of weeks pass. Karen privately puzzles over the experience but says very little. The only indication that the hallway has in some way intruded her thoughts is her newfound interest in Feng Shui. In the film, we can make out a number of books lying around the house, including Houses in Blue, including The Elements of Feng Shui by it's just a bunch of Feng Shui books. There's a particular tender moment as Chad sits with his mother in the kitchen. He's busily determining the Kua number, calculation based on the year of birth, for everyone in the family, while he is carefully making a peanut butter and honey sandwich. "Mommy?" Chad says quietly after a while. How do I get to become president when I grow up?" Karen looks up from her notebook, quite unexpectedly, and with a simplest question. Your son has managed to move her. You study hard at school and keep doing what you're doing, then you can be whatever you want. Chad smiles. "When I'm president, can I make you vice president?" Karen's eyes shine with affection. Putting aside her Feng Shui studies, she reaches over and gives Chad a big kiss on the forehead. "What about Secretary of Defense?" During all this, Tom earns his keep by installing a door to close off the hallway. First, he mounts a wood frame using some of the tools he brought from Lowell, and a few more he rented from the local hardware store. Then he hangs up a single door with 24-gauge hot-dipped galvanized steel skins and an acoustical performance rating coded at, that's just words, ASTM E41370T STC28. Last but not least, he puts in 4 Schlag deadbolts and color codes the 4 separate keys: red, yellow, green, and blue. For a while, Daisy keeps him company, though it remains hard to determine whether she's more transfixed by Tom or the hallway. At one point, she walks up to the threshold and lets out a little yelp, but the cry just flattens out and dies in the narrow corridor. Tom seems noticeably relieved when he finally shuts the door and turns the 4 locks. Unfortunately, as he twists the last key, the accompanying sound contains a familiar ring. He grips the key, the red key. They misspelled key, K-Y-E. They put key. K-Y-E. He grips the red K-Y-E and tries it again. As the deadbolt glances the strike plate, the resulting click creates an unexpected and very unwelcome echo. Slowly, Tom unlocks the door and peeks inside. Somehow, and for whatever reason, the thing has grown. Intermittently, Novitzin opens the door himself and stares down the hallway, sometimes using a flashlight, sometimes just studying the darkness itself. "What do you do with that?" Novitzin asks his brother one evening. "Move," Tom replies. Sadly, even with the unnatural darkness now locked behind a steel door, Karen and Davidson still continue to say very little to each other, their own feelings seemingly as impossible for them to address as the meaning of the hallway itself. I'm gonna sip some tea. Oh, yeah, that's that good stuff. Chad accompanies his mother around town as she searches for various feng shui objects guaranteed to change the energy of the home, while Daisy follows her father around the house. As he paces from room to room, talking vehemently on the phone with Reston, trying to come up with a feasible and acceptable way to investigate the phenomenon lurking in his living room. And finally, in the middle of all this, he lifts his daughter onto his shoulders. Unfortunately, as soon as Karen returns, Davidson sets Daisy back down on the floor and retreats to the study to continue his discussions. With domestic tensions proving a little too much to stomach, Tom escapes to the garage, where he works for a while in a dollhouse. House is tilted in that one. Whatever. He has started to build for Daisy. This one has a, No, it doesn't. Until, eventually, he takes a break, drifting out to the backyard to get high and hot in the sun. Funnily walking around the patch of lawn in the hallway should, for all intents and purposes, occupy. Before long, Chad and Daisy are sidling up to his great bear snoring under a tree, and even though they start, "Hello, how's it going?" I don't know how to say that. Akihoriko. Roriko. Hello, how are you? I do books now. I'm reading The House of Leaves. How are you doing? Hell yeah. Where was I? And even though they start to tie his shoelaces together, tickle his nostrils with long braids of grass, or use a mirror to focus the sun on his nose, Tom remains remarkably patient. He almost seems to enjoy their mischief. Growling, yawning, playing along, putting both of them in a headlock, Chad and Daisy laughing hysterically until finally all three are exhausted and snoozing into dusk. Considering the complexity of Karen and Vincent's relationship, it is fortunate our understanding of their problems is not left entirely up to interpretation. Some of their respective views and feelings are revealed in their video journal entries. Sex, 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 Karen whispers into her camcorder. It was like we just met when we got here. The kids would go out and we'd fuck in the kitchen and the shower. We did it even in the garage, but ever since that closet thing appeared, I can't. I don't know why. It terrifies me. On the same subject, Davidson offers a similar view. When we first moved here, Karen was like a college co-ed. Anywhere, anytime. Now all of a sudden she refuses to be touched. I kiss her, she practically starts to cry. It all started when we got back from Seattle. And this one has a footnote. But it's not that long. Nor does it seem to help that Davidson and Karen both have among their books Erica Jong's Fear of Flying, Anne Hooper's The Ultimate Sex Book. It's just a bunch of books that they have. But the division between them is not just physical. Karen, again, doesn't he see I don't want him going in there because I love him? You don't need to be a genius to realize there's something bad about that place. Navy, don't you see that? Davidson, the only thing I want to do is go in there, but she's adamant that I don't, and I love her so I won't. But it's just killing me. Maybe because I know this is all about her fears, her anxieties. She hasn't even given a thought to what I care about. Blech. God, I'm fumbling today. Until finally, the lack of physical intimacy and emotional understanding leads both of them to make privately. Now the fire got loud at nowhere. Leads both of them to make privately voice ultimatums. Karen, but I will say this, if he goes in there, I'm out of here. Kids and all. And Novitzin, if she keeps up this cold front, you bet I'm going in there. Then one night in early August, blank, and the equally famous blank drop in for dinner. It is a complete coincidence that they happen to be in DC at the same time, but neither of them seems to mind the presence of the other. As Blank said, any friend of Navy's a friend of mine. Novitzin and Karen have known both of them for quite a few years, so the evening is lighthearted and filled with plenty of amusing stories. Clearly, Karen and Novitzin relish the chance to reminisce a little about the good times, when things seemed a little less complicated. Perhaps a little starstruck, Tom says very little. There's plenty of opportunities for a glass of Ryan, but he provides himself by keeping to water, though he does excuse himself from the table to smoke a joint outside. Much to Tom's surprise and delight, Blank joins him. As the evening progresses, Blank harps a little on Novitzin's newfound domicility. Jesus Christ. Domesticity. No more crazy Navy, eh? Those days all gone for good. I remember when you'd party all night, shoot all morning, and then spend the rest of the day developing your film in a closet with just a bucket and a bulb if you had to. I'm willing to bet you don't even have a darkroom here, which is just a little too much for Novitzin to bear. Here, Blank, you want to see a dark room? I'll show you a dark room. Don't you dare, Navy, Karen immediately cries. Come on, Karen, they're our friends, Novitzin says, leading to the two celebrities into the living room, where he instructs them to look out the window so they could see for themselves his ordinary backyard. Satisfied that they understand nothing but the trees and lawn could possibly lie on the other side of the wall, he retrieves the four colored keys hidden in the antique bassinet on the foyer. Everyone is pretty tipsy, and the general mood is friendly and easy, so it seems impossible to disturb. Which of course all changes when Novitzin unlocks the door and reveals the hallway. Blank takes one look at that dark place and retreats into the kitchen. 10 minutes later, Blank is gone. Blank steps up to the threshold, points Novitzin's flashlight at the walls and floor, and then retires to the bathroom. A little later, Blank is also gone. Karen is so enraged by the whole incident, she makes Novitzin sleep on the couch with his beloved hallway. No surprise, Novitzin fails to fall asleep. He tosses around for an hour until he finally gets up and goes off to search for his camera. Title card reads Exploration A. Timestamp on Novitzin's camcorder indicates that it is exactly 3:19 a.m. Call me impetuous or just curious, you hear him mutter as he shoves his sore feet into a pair of boots, but a little look around isn't gonna hurt. Without ceremony, he unlocks the door and slips into the threshold, taking with him only a Hi8, a mag light, and his 35mm Nikon. Commentary he provides us with is very spare. Cold, wow, really cold. Walls are dark, similar to the closet space upstairs. In a few seconds, he reaches the end. The hallway cannot be more than 70 feet long. That's it, nothing else, no big deal. Over this, Karen and I have been fighting, except Novitzin swings around. He suddenly discovers a new doorway to the right. It was not there before. What the? Carefully, Novitzin nudges his flashlight into this new darkness and discovers an even longer corridor. This one's easily, I'd say, 100 feet. A few seconds later, he comes across a still larger corridor branching off to the left, at least 15 feet wide, with a ceiling well over 10 feet high. The length of this one, however, is impossible to estimate, as Novitzin's flashlight proves useless against the darkness ahead, dying long before it can ever come close to determining an end. Novitzin pushes ahead, moving deeper and deeper into the house. House is in blue. eventually passing a number of doorways, leading off into alternate passageways or chambers. Here's a door, no lock. A room, not very big, empty, no windows, no switches, no outlets. Heading back to the corridor, leaving the room. Seems colder now. Maybe I'm just getting colder. Here's another door, unlocked. Another room, again no windows, continuing on. A flashlight and camera skitter across the ceiling and floor in loose harmony, stabbing into small rooms, alcoves, or spaces reminiscent of closets. Though no shirts hang there. Still, no matter how far Novitzin proceeds down this particular passageway, his light never comes close to touching the punctuation point, promising by the converging perspective lines. Sliding on and on and on, spawning one space after another, a constant stream of corners and walls, all of them unreadable and perfectly smooth. Finally, Novitzin stops in front of an entrance much larger than the rest. It arcs high above his head and yawns into an undisturbed blackness. His flashlight finds the floor but no walls, and for the first time, no ceiling. Only now do we really see how big Novitzin's house is. Something should be said about here about Novitzin's hand. Out of all the footage he personally shoots, there rarely exists a tremble, shake, jerk, or even a case of poor framing. His camera, no matter the circumstances, manages to view the world, even this world, with a remarkable steadiness as well as a high, refined aesthetic sensibility. Comparisons immediately make Novitzin's strengths apparent. Holloway Roberts' tape is virtually unwatchable, tilted frames, out of focus, shakes, horrible lighting, and finally, oblivion when faced with danger. Likewise, Karen and Tom's tapes reflect their inexperience and can only be considered for content. Only the images Novitzin shoots capture the otherness inherent in that place. Undeniably, Novitzin's experience as a photojournalist gives him advantage over the rest when focusing on something that is as terrifying as it is threatening. But of course, there is more at work here than just the courage to stand and focus. There's also the courage to face and shape the subject in an extremely original manner. Christ. Alright. C. Lisa Speens, Images of Dark. Oh god. Versailles Paris by Night, the tenderly encountered history of rooms in Andrew Bush's Bonnetstown, work of O. Winston Link and Karen Gojikin, as well as the home of the photographs by Lucien Agner, Osbert Lamb, Cass Orthies, Floris Mnous, Ashim Ghosh, Annette Laimu, Irina Ionesco, Cindy Sherman, Edmund Teskey, Andreas Finnegar, Feininger, something like that. Andreas Feininger, John Vachon, Tetsuya Ichimura, Sandy Skoglund, Beaumont Newhall, James Linder, Robert Rauschenberg, Mayaka Ishiuchi, Alfred Estade, Alfred Steiglitz, Robert Adams, Sol Libson, Hyun Kong Nek Oot, Lester Talkington, William Henry Jackson, Edward Weston, William Baker, Yusuf Karsh, Adam Clark Vroman, Julia Margaret Cameron, George Bernard, Lennart Nilsson, Herb Ritz, Nancy Burson, Untitled, 1993, Bragaglia, Henry Carter Bresson, Place de l'Europe, William Wegman, Gordon Parks, Alvin Langdon Coburn, Jesus Christ, Edward Ruscha, Hubert Pointing, Simpson Kalisher, Bob Adelman, Larry Fink, Bevan Davies, Charlatan Watkins, Edward S. Curtis, Michael Lessie, Wisconsin Death Trip, Aaron Siskin, Kelly Wise, Cornell Kappa, Bill Brandt, Burt Glenn, Keith Smith, Philip Perkis. I don't know if you're catching on to this, but this is just 2 pages of exclusively names. I'm not going to read those all. This person's name is just Vantha. I'm not reading all the names. There's more. Larry Burrows and Don McCullen, American soldiers tending wounded children in a cellar of a house. Houses in Blue, by candlelight, 1968. Allison Adrian Burns, another Zampano reader. He told me this list was entirely random, with the possible exception being Versailles, Speen, Bush, and Link. Zampano was not very familiar with photographers. We just picked the names out of some books and magazines he had lying around, Burns told me. I described a picture or two and he'd say no, or he'd say fine. A few times he told me just to choose a page and point. Hey, whatever you wanted to do. That's what I was there for. Sometimes, though, he wanted to just hear about the LA scene, what was happening, what wasn't, the gloss, the name of clubs and bars, that sort of thing. As far as I know, that list never got written down. 2 pages of names. 2.5 pages of names. Jesus fuck. As Novitzin takes his first step through that immersive arch, he is suddenly a long way from the warm light of the living room. In fact, his creep into that place resembles the eerie faith required for any deep-sea exploration, the beam of his flashlight scratching at nothing but the invariant blackness. Novitzin keeps his attention focused on the floor ahead of him, and no doubt because he keeps looking down, the floor begins to assume a new meaning. It can no longer be taken for granted. Perhaps something lies beneath it. Perhaps it will open up into some deep fissure. Suddenly, immutable silence rushes in to replace what had momentarily shattered it. Novitzin freezes, unsure whether or not he had really heard something growl. I better be on my way back, he finally whispers, which, though probably muttered in jest, suddenly catches him off guard. Novitzin swiftly turns around. Much to his horror, he can no longer see the arch, let alone the wall. He has walked beyond the range of his light. In fact, no matter where he points his flashlight, the only thing he can ever perceive is oily darkness. Even worse, his panicked turn and subsequent absence of landmarks has made it impossible for him to remember which direction he just came from. Oh God, he blurts, creating odd repeats in the distance. He twists around again. "Hey," he shouts, spawning a multitude of A's, and then rotates 5 degrees and yells, "Balls!" A long moment of silence follows before he hears the faint halls racing back through the dark. After several more such turns, he discovers a loud easy returns with Z, at least with the least amount of delay. This is the direction he decides on within less than a minute. The beam of his flashlight finds something more than darkness. Quickening his pace slightly, Novitzin reaches the wall, and safety he perceives there. He now faces another decision, left or right. This time, before going anywhere, he reaches into his pocket and places a penny at his feet. Relying on this marker, he heads left for a while. When a minute passes and he still has failed to find an entrance, he returns to the penny. Now he moves off to the right, very quickly comes across a doorway. Only this one, as we see, is much smaller and has different shape than the one he originally came through. He decides to keep walking. When a minute passes and he has still not found the arch, he stops. "Think, Navy, think," he whispers to himself, his voice edged slightly with fear. Again that faint growl returns, rolling through the darkness like thunder. Novitzin quickly does an about-face and returns to the door. Only now he discovers that the penny he left behind, which should have been at least 100 feet further, lies directly before him. Even stranger, the doorway is no longer the doorway, but the arch he had been looking for all along. Unfortunately, as he steps through it, he immediately sees how drastically everything has changed. The corridor is now much narrower and ends in a T. He has no idea which way to go, and when a third growl ripples through that place, this time significantly louder, Novitzin panics and starts to run. His sprint, however, only lasts a few seconds. He realizes quickly that it is a useless, even dangerous course of action. Catching his breath and doing his best to calm his frayed nerves, he tries to come up with a better plan. Karen, he finally shouts, a flurry of air ends. Almost instantly swallowed in front of him. Tom, he tries, briefly catching hold of the arms as they too start to vanish, though before doing so completely, Novitzin momentarily detects a last slightly higher pitch, entwined in his own voice. He waits a moment, not hearing anything else, shouts again, I'm in here. I'm in here! Yeah. Giving rise to tripping nears, reverberating and fading until, in the next to last instant, a sharp cry comes back to him, a child's cry, calling out for him, drawing him to the right. By shouting, I'm here, and following the at ease. What? Singing off... Oh, the daddy, singing off the wall as Novitzin slowly begins to make his way through an incredibly complex and frequently disorienting series of turns. Eventually, after backtracking several times and making numerous wrong choices, occasionally descending into disturbing territories of silence, the voice begins to grow noticeably louder, until finally Novitzin slips around a corner, certain he has found his way out. Instead, though, he encounters only more darkness, and this time greater quiet. His breathing quickens. He's unsure of which way to go. Obviously, he's afraid, and then quite abruptly he steps to the right, through a low passageway, and discovers a corridor terminating in warm yellow lamplight, with a tiny silhouette standing in the doorway, tugging her daddy home with a cry. Emerging into the safety of his own living room, Novitzin immediately scoops up Daisy in his arms and gives her a big hug. I had a nightmare, she says, with a very serious nod. Similar to the Khumbu Icefall, the base of Mount Everest, where blue seracs and chasms change unexpectedly throughout the day and night, Novitzin is the first one to discover how that place can also seem to constantly change. Unlike the Icefall, however, not even a single hairline fracture appears in those walls. I'm gonna drink more tea. Oh god, I'm fumbling my words tonight. Unlike the Icefall, however, not even a single hairline fracture appears in those walls. Absolutely nothing visible to the eye provides a reason for or even evidence of those terrifying shifts, which can in a matter of moments reconstitute a simple path into an extremely complicated one. Footnote 77. Nothing visible to the eye provides a reason. Fitting phrase for what's happening. And to think my day actually started off pretty well. I woke up having had an almost wet dream about Thumper. She was doing this crazy Margaretha Gertruda Zell dance, veil after colored veil thrown aside, though oddly enough never landing, rather flying around her, as if she were in the middle of some kind of gentle twister. The sheer sheets of fabric continuing to encircle her even as she removes more and more of them, allowing me only momentary glimpses of her body, her smooth skin, her mouth, her waist, her yes, I get a glimpse of that too. I'm moving towards her, moving past all the interference, certain that with every step I take fucking Jesus Christ. After all, she's almost taken everything off, and now she has taken everything off. Her knees are spreading apart, just a few more veils to get past and I'll be able to see her. Not just bits and pieces, but all of her. In fact, I'm there already, which means I'm about to enter her, which is apparently enough to blow the circuit, hit the switch, prohibit the sublime and much anticipated conclusion, leaving me blind in the daylight stream pouring through my window. Fuck. I go off the cuff in the shower, or at least the water's hot, and that's enough steam to fog the mirror. Afterwards, I pack my pipe and light up, wake and bake, more like a wash and bake. Half a bowl of cereal and a shot of bourbon later, I'm there, my friendly haze having finally arrived. I'm ready for work. Parking's easy to find on Vista. I jog up to Sunset, even jog up the stairs, practically skipping past the by appointment only sign. Why skipping? Because as I step into the shop, I know I'm not even 1 minute late. Which is not usually the case for me. The expression on my boss's face reveals just how astonished in achievement this is. I couldn't care less about him. I want to see Thumper. I want to find out she's really wearing any of that diaphanous rainbow fabric I was dreaming about. Of course she's not there, but that doesn't get me down. I'm still as optimistic she'll arrive, and if not today, why, fuck, tomorrow's just another day away. Sentiment I can almost sing. I immediately sit down. Thumper's a stripper, by the way. Immediately sit down on the side counter and start working, mainly because I don't want to deal with my boss, which would mean jeopardizing my good mood. Of course, he couldn't care less about being in my mood. He approaches, clearing his throat. He will talk, he will ruin everything, except it suddenly penetrates that chalky material he actually insists on calling his brain. Sure. Then I'm building his precious points, and sure enough, this insight prohibits his trap from opening and he leaves me alone. Points are basically clusters of needles, used to shade the skin. They are necessary because a single point amounts to not a prick much bigger than this period, and then a period. Okay, maybe a little bigger. Anyway, 5 needles go into what's called a 5, 7 for 7s, and so on, all soldered together towards the base. I actually enjoy making them. There's something pleasant about concentrating on the subtle detail. The precision required, constantly checking and rechecking to assure yourself that yes, indeed, the sharps are level in the correct arrangement, ready at last to be fixed in place with dots of hot solder. And I recheck on my rechecking. The points must not be too close nor too far apart nor skewed in any way, and only then, if I'm satisfied, which I usually am, though take heed usually doesn't mean always, well, I scrub the shafts and put them aside to be sterilized later in the ultrasound or autoclave. My boss may think that I can't draw worse shit, but he knows I build better needles than anyone. He works at a tattoo shop. Tells me all the time on my tardiness, my tendency to drift and moither, and of course the odds that I'll ever get to tattoo anything. Johnny, nothing you do, shaking his head. No one's ever gonna want to make permanent, unless they're crazy. And let me tell you something, Johnny. Crazies never pay. But about my needle making, I've never heard him complain once. Anyway, a couple hours whiz by. I'm finishing up a batch of 5s, my boss's cluster of choice, when he finally speaks, telling me to pull some bottles of black and purple ink and fill a few caps while I'm at it. Keep the stuff in the storeroom in the back. It's a sizable space, big enough to fit a small work table in. You have to climb 8 pretty steep steps to reach it. That's where we stock all the extras, and we have extras for almost everything, except light bulbs. For some reason, my boss hasn't picked up any extra light bulbs in a while. Today, of course, I flicked on the switch and flash, bam, pop. Okay, scratch the blam. The storeroom light bulb burns out. Recommence flicking as if such incessant, highly repetitive, insistent, highly repetitive, and at this point pointless action would actually resurrect the light. It doesn't. The switch has been rendered meaningless, forcing me to feel my way around the dark. Keep the door open so I can see okay, but it still takes me a while to negotiate the shadows before I can locate the caps and ink. Now, the sweet effects of my dream to say, nothing of the soft thrumming delivered care of alcohol and Oregon bud, have worn off, though I still continue to think about Thumper. Slowly coming to grips with the fact that she won't be visiting today has caused my spirits to drop substantially, till I realize I have no way of knowing that for certain. After all, there's still half a day left. No, she's coming. I know it. Feel it in my gut. That's okay. Tomorrow's... fuck that. I start filling the caps with purple, concentrating on its texture, the strange hue, imagining I can actually observe the rapid pulse of its bandwidth. These are stupid thoughts, as if to confirm that sentiment, darkness pushes in on me. Suddenly, the slash of light on my hands looks sharp enough to cut me, real sharp. Move and it will cut me. I do move, and guess what? I start to bleed. The laceration isn't deep. But importantly, important stuff has been struck, leaking all over the table and floor. Lost. I don't have long, except I'm not bleeding, though I am breathing hard, real hard. I don't need to touch my face to know there are now beads of sweat slipping off my forehead, flicking off my eyelids, streaming down the back of my neck. Cold as hands of the dead. Something terrible is going on here, going extremely wrong. Get out, I think. I want to get out, but I can't move. Then, as if there were nothing but a grim prelude, shit really starts to happen. There's that awful taste again, sharp as rust, wrapping around my tongue. Worse, I'm no longer alone. Impossible, not impossible. This time it's human, maybe not. Extremely long fingers. And sucking sound too, and sucking on teeth. Teeth already torn from the gums. I don't know how I know this. It's already too late. I've seen the eyes, they have no whites. I haven't seen this. The way they glisten red. It begins reaching for me, slowly unfolding itself out of its corner. Mad meat, all of it, but I understand. These eyes full of blood. Except I'm looking at shadows and shelves. Of course I'm alone. They're behind me, the door closes. The rest is in pieces. A scream, a howl, a roar, all's warping or splintering. That makes no sense. There's a terrible banging. Air is rank with stench. At least that's not a mystery. I know the sorest boy do I ever do. I've shit myself, pissed myself too. I can't believe it. Holy shit. Urine soaking into my pants, fecal matter running down the back of my legs. I'm caught in it. Must run and hide from it, but I still can't move. In fact, the more I try to escape, the less I can breathe. The more I try to hold on, the less I can focus. Something's leaving me, parts of me. Everything's falling apart. Stories heard but not recalled, letters too. Words fill my head, fragmenting like artillery shells, shrapnel like syllables flying everywhere, terrible syllables, sharp, cracked, traveling at murderous speed, tearing through it all in a very, very bad, perhaps even irreparable way. Known, some call, is, air, am, incoherent? Yes. Without meaning? I'm afraid not. The shape of a shape of a shape of a face, as assembling right before my eyes. What wail embattled break, like a hawk. Another Malden, or no Malden at all, on snowy days, or not snowy at all, far beyond the edge of any reasonable awareness, is what it feels like to be truly afraid. Though, of course, it doesn't. None of this can truly approach the reality of that fear. There's, there in the midst of that bedlam. Like the sound of a heart or some other unholy blast, desperate and dying, slamming, no, banging, into the thin wall of my inner ear, paper thin in fact, attempting to shatter inside what had already been shattered long ago. I should be dead. Why am I still here? As that question appears concise and order properly accented. See, I'm holding on to the tray loaded with all these caps and bottles of black and purple ink. Not only that, but I'm already walking as fast as I can through the doorway. The door is open. I did not open it. I stubbed my toe, falling down the stairs, tripping over myself, hurling the tray into the air, the caps, the ink, all of it, floating above me now. As my hands, independent of anything I might have thought to suggest, reach up to protect my head, something hisses and slashes out at the back of my neck. It doesn't matter. Down I go, head first, somersaulting down these 8 pretty steep steps, a wild blur, leaving me passively note the pain spots as they happen, shoulders, hip, elbows, even as I also, at the same time, remain dimly aware of the much ink coming down like bad rain, splattering around me, everywhere covering me, even the tray hitting me, though it doesn't hurt, the caps scattering across the floor, and of course the accompanying racket. Telling my boss, telling them all, whoever was there, what? Not that it was over. It wasn't over. Not yet. In between all that, there was just a little sentence that says, after putting his daughter back to bed, Novitzin finds Karen standing in the entrance of their room. The wind's knocked out of me. It's not coming back. Here's where I die, I think. And it's true. I'm possessed by the premonition of what will be, what has to be, my inevitable asphyxiation. At least that's what they see, my boss and crew, as they come running up to the back, called there by all that clatter and mess. What they can't see, though, is the omen seen in the fall, my fall, As I'm doused in black ink, my hands completely covered. I see the floor is black, and have you anticipated this, or should I be more explicit? Jet on jet. For a blinding instance, I watched my hand vanish. In fact, all of me has vanished. One hell of a disappearing act, too. The already foreseen dissolution of the self. Lost without contrast, slipping into oblivion, dissolute, until mid-gasp. I catch sight of my reflection in the back of the tray, the ghost in the way. Seems I'm not gone, not quite. My face has been splattered with purple, as of my arms, granting contrast and thus defining me, marking me, and at least for the moment preserving me. Suddenly I could breathe, and with each breath, the terror rapidly dissipates. My boss, however, is scared shitless. Jesus Christ, Johnny, he says, are you okay? What happened? Can't you see I shit myself? I think to shout, but now I see that I haven't. Except for the ink blotting my threads, my pants are bone dry. Mumble something about how much my toe hurts. He takes that to mean I'm alright, and I won't try to sue him from a wheelchair. Later, a patron points out the long bloody scratch on the back of my neck. I'm unable to respond. Now, though, I realize what I should have said. In the spirit of the dark, in the spirit of the same staircase, some call as air am, which is to say, I am not what I used to be. The Mr. Truant's asides may seem impenetrable, they are not without rhyme or reason. The reader wishes to interpret Mr. Truant on his own, his or her own, may disregard this note. Those, however, who feel that they would profit from a better understanding of this past may wish to proceed ahead and read his father's obituary in Appendix 2D, as well as those letters written by his institutionalized mother in Appendix 2E. Jesus fuck. E time. What's the matter, she murmurs. Go back to sleep, Daisy just had a bad dream. Novitzin starts to go back downstairs. I'm sorry, Navy. I'm sorry I got so mad, it's not your fault. That thing just scares me. Come back to bed. So they later confide in separate video entries that night. For the first time in weeks, they made love again. Their descriptions running the gamut of anything from gentle and comforting to familiar and very satisfying. Their bodies had repaired what words would never try to. And at least for a little while, they felt close again. The next morning, with harmony now restored, Novitzin cannot bring himself to tell Karen about his visit. Fortunately, having nearly gotten lost inside his own house, Houses in Blue, has for the moment diminished his appetite for its darkness. He promises to turn over the initial investigation to Billy Reston. He'll call the New York Times, Larry King, whoever, and will move. End of story. Karen responds to his offer with kisses clinging to his hand, a stability of sorts, once again returning to their lives. Still, the compromise is far from satisfying, as Karen records on her Hi8. I told Navy I'll stay for the first look in there, but I've also called Mom. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. Novitzin admits his. I feel lazy about lying to Karen, but I think it's unreasonable of her to expect me not to investigate. She knows who I am, I think. At which point the sturdy door suddenly swings open and Daisy, wearing a red and gold dress, barges in and begins tugging on her father's sleeves. Come play with me, Daisy. Novitzin lifts his daughter onto his lap. Come play with me, Daddy. Novitzin lifts his daughter onto his lap. Okay, what do you want to play? I don't know, she shrugs. Always. What's always? But before she can answer, he starts tickling around her neck and Daisy dissolves into bursts of delight. Despite the tremendous amount of material generated by Exploration A, no one has ever commented on this game Daisy wants to play with her father. Perhaps because everyone assumes it's either a request to play always or just a childish neologism. Then again, always slightly mispronounces hallways. It also echoes it. Oh. Yeah, there we go. It's chapter. We're on chapter 6 now. What? You know what? Fuck it. We'll keep going. I was about to close it, but it just got fascinating. Animals. Lack of a symbolic identity and the self-consciousness that goes with it. Oh god, my sniffles. They merely act and move reflexively as they are driven by their instincts. If they pause at all, it's only a physical pause. Inside they are anonymous. And even their faces have no name. Excuse me again. They live in a world without time, pulsating, as it were, in a state of being dumb. In a state of dumb being. The knowledge of death is reflective and conceptual, and animals are spared it. They live and they disappear with the same thoughtlessness, a few minutes of fear, a few seconds of anguish, and it is over. But to live a whole lifetime with the fate of death haunting one's dreams, and even the most sun-filled days, that's something else. Ernest Becker. While the pragmatic space of animals is a function of inborn instincts, man has to learn what orientation he needs in order to act. Christian Norberg Scholz. When Hillary, the gray-coated Siberian Husky, appears at the end of the Novitzin record, he is no longer a puppy. A couple years have passed. Something forever watchful has taken up residence in his eyes. He may be playful with those he knows, but whenever a stranger wanders too close, they invariably hear a growl rising from somewhere deep in his throat, a little like distant thunder, warning them away. That is footnote 79. Never mind. Mallory, the tabby cat, vanishes completely, and no mention is made about what happened to him. His disappearance remains a mystery. One thing, however, is certain. The house played a very small part in both their histories. Houses in Blue. The incident took place on August 11th, 1990. A week after Will Novitzin's secret exploration of the hallway. Saturday morning cartoons blare from the kitchen television. Chad and Daisy munch down on their breakfast. Karen stands outside smoking a cigarette, talking on the phone with Audrey McCall, her shelf-building accomplice. The topic of the moment is feng shui, and all it has failed to do. No matter how many ceramic turtles or wooden ducks, goldfish, celestial dragons, or bronze lions I put in this goddamn house, she rants, it still keeps throwing off this awful energy. I need to find a psychic or an exorcist, or a really good real estate agent. Meanwhile, in the living room, Tom helps Novitzin take some still shots of the hallway using a strobe. Suddenly, somewhere in the house, there's a loud yowl and bark. In an instant, Mallory comes screaming into the living room, with Hillary nipping at his tail. It is not the first time they've involved themselves in such a routine. The only exception is that on this occasion, after dashing up over the sofa, both puppy and cat head straight down the hallway and disappear into the darkness. Novitzin probably would have gone in after them had he not instantly heard barks outside, followed by Karen's shouts accusing him of letting the animals out. But on that day they were supposed to stay in. What the hell? We hear Novitzin mutter loudly. Sure enough, Hillary and Mallory in the backyard. Mallory up a tree, Hillary howling grandly over his achievement. For something so startling, it seems surprising how little has been made of this event. Bernard Porch, in his 4,000-page treatise on the Novitzin record, devotes only a third of a sentence to the subject. Strange how the house won't support the presence of animals. Mary Woodman leaves us with one terse question. So what's the deal with the pets? Even Novitzin himself, the consummate investigator, never revisits the subject. Who knows what might have been discovered if he had. Regardless, Holloway soon arrives, and any understanding that might have been gained further by analyzing the strange relationship between animals in the house is passed over in favor of human exploration. That's footnote 82. Strange House in Ponyo also fails to comment on the inability of the animals to wander those corridors. I believe there's a great deal of significance in this discovery. Unfortunately, Zapanyo never returns to the matter. And while I would like to offer you my own interpretation, I am a little high and a lot drunk, trying to determine what set me off in the first place about this private little homebound binge. For one thing, Thumper came into the shop today. Jesus, fuck this guy. Ever since I fell down the stairs, things have changed there. My boss kind of tiptoes around me, playing all low-key and far off, his demeanor probably matching his old junkie days. Even his friends keep their distance, everyone for the most part just leaving me alone to sketch and solder. Though I'm sketching far less these days, I mean, with all this writing. Anyway, Thumper's actually been by a few times, but my incomprehensible shyness persists, forbidding me to ever summon up more than the occasional intelligible sentence. Recently, though, I did get this crazy idea. I decided to go on out on a limb and show her that sappy little bit I wrote about her, with all that coastal north and August sun. Even with the Lucy part, I just put it in an envelope and carried it around with me until she dropped by and handed it to her without a word. I don't know what I expected, but she opened it right on the spot. I read it and laughed, and then my boss grabbed it and he sort of winced. Now look who's the dumb mutant, he shuddered. And what that was that. Thumper handed me her flip-flops and Adidas sweatpants, stretched out on the chair. Felt like it's such an idiot. Lute had warned me I'd be certifiable if I showed it to her. Maybe I am. I actually believed I would touch her in some absurd way. But to hear her laugh like that really fucked me up. I should have stayed away from such flights of fancy. Stuck to my regular made-up stories. I did my best to hide in the back, though I was too scared to go too far back because of the storeroom. Then right before she left, Thumper came over and handed me her card. Call me sometime, she said with a wink. You're cute. My life instantly changed, I thought. I told Lude. He told me to call her at once. I waited. Then I reconsidered. Then I postponed. Finally, at exactly 22 past 3 in the morning, I dialed. It was a beeper. I punched in my number. She's a stripper, I reasoned. Strippers live late. An hour passed. I started drinking. I'm still drinking. She hasn't called. She isn't going to call. I feel dead. Hillary and Mallory. I suddenly envy them. What the fuck is this guy on? Wonder if Novitzin did too. I bet Zapanyo envied them. Jesus. Yeah. I'm gonna take a drink of my tea. I need to get away. Zapanyo liked animals. Far away. All those cats he would talk to in that weedy courtyard. At dawn, at night. So many shades slinking out from under that dusty place like years. His years. Could they be like my ears too? Though certainly not so many, not like him, years and years of them, always rubbing up against his legs, and I see it all so clearly now, static announcements that yes, how shocking. They still are there, disconnected but vital. The way memories reveal their life. Excuse me. By simply appearing, sprinting out from under the shadows, pause, patter, pause, pause. PAWS. Pausing? Then to rub against our legs, zap, see no sparks. Perhaps, but yes, still there, and I'm thinking, as another missing year resolved in song, but let me not get too far from myself. They were, after all, only cats, quadruped, mice devouring, moat chasing, shades, felis catus, with very little to remind them of themselves or their past or even their tomorrows, especially when that present burns hot with play. Their pursuits and their fear, a bright flash to pursue, sun, a star, on a nothing's back, a dark slash to escape. There are always predators. The spry interplay of hidden things, invisible wings, flung upon that great black sail of rods and cones, thin and fractionary. A covenant of light, art for the instant, echoing out of every broken leaf of grass or displaced stick, and so thrust by shadow and the vague hope of color into a rhapsody of motion. Where was I? Okay. Rhapsody of motion and meaning, albeit momentarily, pupil pulling wider, wider still, and darker, receiving all of it, and even more of it, though still only beholding some of it, until in the frenzy of reception, this moat clawing, hack hawk-fearing shade loses itself in temporary madness, leaping, springing, flinging itself after it all. Jesus. As if it were possessed, and it is, and as if that kind of physical response would approximate the witnessed world, which it can't, though very little matters enough to prevent the try, all of which is to say, in the end, they are only cats, but cats too talk just the same before in their own weaving and wending. They Kilkenny disappear, just as they first appeared out of nowhere, vanishing back into the nowhere. Tales from some great story we will never see, but one day we just might have to imagine, which in the gray of gentler eyes will prove more than any of us could ever need. Enough. We will shout enough, our bellies full, our hearts full, our ages full, fullness and greater fullness, and even more fullness. How then we will laugh and forget how the oh my god, imagining has already left us. Slinking back into that place of urban barley, grass, fennel, and wheat, or just plain hay, golden hay, where hey, Hay's days gone by, gone way away. And what of dogs, you asked? Well, there are no dogs except for the Pekingese, but that's a different story, one I won't and cannot tell. It's too dark and difficult without a whim. And if you didn't notice, I'm talking in a whimsical, inconsequential frame of mind right now. Talking, scribbling, aimlessly and strangely about cats, enjoying all the rules in this school of whim, the play of it. Where have I moved? What have I muttered? Who have I met? The frolic and the drift. As I go thinking now, tripping really, over the notion of 80 or more Zampano dusty cats, for no particular irrelevant reason, which must implicitly mean that no, it cannot be raining cats and dogs due to the dust, so much of it, on the ground, about the weeds, in the air, so therefore, ergo, thus, ... No dogs, no Pekingese, just the courtyard. Zampano's courtyard. On a mad lost noonday, wild with years and pounce and sun. Even if another day would find Zampano elsewhere, far from the sun, this sun, flung face down in his ill-swept floor, without so much a clue, no trauma, just old age, the paramedics would say, though they could never explain, no one could. But they found near where he lay, 4 of them, 6 or 7 inches long, and a half-inch deep, splintered the wood, left by some terrible, awful thing. Signature in script of steel or claws, though not Santa's. Zampano died after Christmas after all, but no myth either. For I saw the impossible marks near the trunk, touched them, even caught some splinters on my fingertips, some of their unexpected sadness and mourning, which, though dug out later with a safety pin, I swear I could still fester beneath my skin, reminding me in a peculiar way of him. Just like other splinters I still carry, though these much deeper, having never been worked out by the body, but quite the contrary, worked into the body. By now long since buried, calcified and fused to my very bones, taking me further from the warm frolic of years, reminding me of much colder days. Where I left death, or thought I had, I'm tripping, overcast in tones December gray, recalling names I have tripped, swept in Ohio, sleet and rain, ruled by a man with a beard rougher than a horsehide and hands harder than horn, who called me beast because I was his boy, though he wasn't my father, which is another story, another place I'm here to avoid, as I'm certain early readers also found a story she wanted to avoid. What? As I'm certain there are places you too have sought to avoid, just as one of Zampano's early readers also found a story she wanted to avoid, though she finally told me, or at least some of it, how she departed from the old man's apartment at nightfall, having just endured hours of speech on comfort, death, and legend, not to speak of mothers and daughters and birds and bees and fathers and sons and cats and dogs. All of it distressing her, saddening her, confusing her, and thus leaving her completely unprepared for the memory she was about to find, abruptly returning her from childhood in Santa Cruz, even though she was trying to reorient herself in a familiar setting and the comforting routine of a long walk back to her car. It had been raining there, pouring in fact, though not on Franklin and Whitley. Suddenly noticing the unnatural heaviness of a shadow slipping free from the burnt dusk, though not a shadow at all, later translating this as the sight of an enormous creature trespassing on the curve of the Northern California night, just like like the shadow she saw hiding in the bottom of like the shadow she saw hiding in the bottom turn of Zapanyo's stairwell, moving towards her, and so causing her to panic and scramble into the comforts offered by a local bar, or that night scramble through the gate of Zapanyo's building, away from all that gloom, until only many hours and many drinks later she could finally fall asleep, her hangover the following day leaving her gratefully, she said, with only a fleeting memory of something white with robes of sea smoke and one terrifying flash of blue, which was more, she told me, than she can usually share, even if which she wouldn't share, she knew it still wasn't even the half of it. Excuse me. And so, in the shadow of unspoken events, I watched Zapanyo's courtyard darken. Everything whimsical is left. I try to study the light going carefully, from my room, in the glass of my memory, in the moonstream of my imagination, the weeds, the windows, every bench. But the old man is not there and the cats are gone. Something else has taken their place, something I am unable to see. Waiting. I'm afraid. It is hungry. It is immortal. Worse, it knows nothing of whim. And that's where we're going to stop, right here in chapter 7. That was a good time. Thank you. God, my throat hurts and I just want more tea. Thank you for coming. And Akihiroriki. Nope. Rico. Whatever. Aki, thank you for following. Oh, man. I'm tired. Hey, look, it's Raven. What's up, Raven? That was... I don't think there was, like, a single period in that last thing. Okay, there were periods. No. There's just lots of commas and dashes. I don't think there was a single period in that fucking 2 pages. Comma, 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 chameleon. It's very... That's all I could say about this book. Like, look at that. Page filled with words, the next page, it's literally just the, I'm afraid. It gives you chills. It says hello. Burger King foot lettuce. It gives you chills, okay? Oh man. Raven, come here. Can't reach you if you don't move, goofball. Now I'll be back. I have lied. I will be going now. My throat hurts and I fumbled so many words that I was gonna go bed. Well, it's only 7, but you know what I mean. Ugh. Who's streaming? I don't remember, but make sure you check out my merch. I have no choice on the prices. I made them as cheap as I could possibly make them, but there are still things that are like, nah. Like, it's like, oh, minimum price has to be 50, whatever. But yeah, thank you very much. You have... Bye.